Chapter 6. Henry thought about his decision all weekend. He still knew next to nothing about the phenomenon. Would they be able to find out who had done it? And then he couldn't tell the young woman what power she possessed, because she would certainly not agree with what he had in mind. He was constantly Googling all kinds of things. He typed in "things disappearing" meaning and ended up on some dream interpretation sites that wanted him to believe that he was about to ascend to a higher level. He learned that there was such a thing as the disappearing object phenomenon, or DOP for short, that there could be a poltergeist behind it. But the things that disappeared in his case were semi-immaterial. Henry could hardly imagine that a poltergeist would steal letters. If anyone stole anything here, it was the young woman. According to one website, there was also the possibility that the sentences had slipped into another dimension, but Henry didn't want to think about that. For him, reality was enough, and he could just about control it with the power of legal language. The other world certainly followed completely different rules, and Henry was afraid of that.
You're early again.
Natalie entered the cafe and dropped into the chair opposite him. Henry knew he had to make the suggestion immediately, otherwise he might not find the courage later.
Listen, I have an offer for you.
The girl raised an eyebrow and looked at him suspiciously.
What kind?
Well,
Henry took a book out of his bag. He had planned everything carefully.
I know you're short on money right now, and I have this contact to a publisher. They're looking for someone to record an audiobook.
Henry pushed the book towards her, one of his publisher's top titles, a kitschy airbrush of a couple in the colours pink and purple. Next to the title, the even worse subtitle, designed to make the whole thing more palatable to readers. To follow you means to lose my soul. He was almost ashamed to unpack this book in the cafe, but no one paid any attention to them anyway. The young woman pulled the book towards her with pointed fingers. The corners of her mouth twitched.
How do you know that publisher? Wait, you're not a writer after all, are you?
Henry had been bracing himself for the unpleasant questions he didn't want to answer.
The publishing director is an old friend of mine. I told him how good you are at reading aloud, and he wants to have a few of his books recorded as audiobooks. He'll give you about 150 to 200 euros per audio hour.
Henry had looked up the rates on the internet.
Doesn't he want someone professional for the job? I don't even have the right equipment.
You don't need fancy equipment. It's enough if you get a decent microphone. The publisher will also pay for that. He wants a fresh, young voice. If you read with a slight Scottish accent, all the better.
Meanwhile, Natalie had already begun to read the inside cover of the book.
A beautiful story of two souls lost in a web of passion and suffering.
The girl bit her lips. She probably had to pull herself together not to laugh out loud. Henry was embarrassed himself.
I've never done anything like that before, and I'm not sure I want to.
Henry interrupted her.
Think about it at least. Please. You said yourself that you could use a little extra money.
The young woman looked out of the window at Edinburgh Castle, then back at Henry.
Okay, I'll think about it.
Confused, Natalie stepped out of the bookshop. She did not quite understand yet what Henry had asked her to do, and why. She had never really thought of herself as a good reader. She was constantly spluttering, stumbling over words that were not familiar to her. And then her Scottish accent, thick as molten lava. But 150 to 200 euros per audio hour, that would be maybe 1,000 or even 2,000 euros for the one audiobook. She could easily cover 2 months' rent with that. Food had already become more expensive again, and she had forbidden herself to buy certain things: butter, meat and eggs. She cooked with margarine and ate lots of vegetables and lentils. Maybe she could even reduce her hours at the call centre. Every time her own phone rang, She thought about how much she hated her job there. The worst was when she had to mute the callers for a moment, and then they thought she couldn't hear what they were saying and said something obscene. They always said the internet brought out the worst in people, but it was at least as bad on the phone. She felt strange sitting in the room and reading aloud to herself. She had already bought a professional microphone, as Henry had advised her to do. She still found his commission odd. Was this really meant for his friend, the publisher, or was it for himself? Sometimes, when she was reading to him, she would sneak a glance at him out of the corner of her eye. He sometimes had such a look on his face, half rapt, half confused, like a child watching a magic show. In between reading out loud and then listening to her own voice, she became increasingly self-conscious. She sounded like a child. Again and again she had to go back and re-record something. She had to force herself to pronounce the T in not, which she usually swallowed. It sounded as if a song was suddenly interrupted by a harsh sound. Just as Natalie was about to start a new chapter, Zane burst into the room. Natalie winced. She hadn't even noticed that he had come home.
Hey, heard you talking to yourself. What you doing there?
He threw himself onto her bed, stretching out his legs with a groan. The cheesy book was still lying open on the table. Natalie quickly closed it, almost covering it with her body.
I'm recording an audiobook.
Since when is that?
Since this week. Brings in a little money.
Zane looked at her.
You've never recorded anything before. Where did you get such a job?
My friend told me about it. He knows an audiobook publisher.
Zane crossed his arms. Natalie hated it when he did that.
I'm just making a little extra cash.
She thought for a moment about telling him about the dizziness, but he would probably make fun of her.
Is it related to that one guy you're always meeting these days?
Natalie didn't answer.
Maybe he wants you to read this so he can listen to it and, well, you know.
Natalie was blushing.
What the fuck are you thinking?
Well, he's old, probably lonely. You're young and pretty. You don't think he just wants you to read to him?
You're a piece of shit.
She tried to push him off the bed. Zane sat up and laughed.
What a little spitfire. Don't be angry, I'm just saying.
Well, then let me say something, for once. I'm doing this job for myself. I'm not doing it for an old man. Not for you, not for anyone else. I'm making money from it so I can live.
Zane looked at her and stood up.
Okay. I didn't mean anything by it. But you know, they're all the same. Men.
He got up and left the room. Natalie was still breathing hard. She looked at her alarm clock. 2 hours had already passed. Red-faced, she began to read again. A few days later, Henry called his publisher again to ask about sales, as he had been so fond of doing for some time. One of the grass cows, as he called the assistants, picked up the phone, which gave him particular pleasure.
Mr. McCulloch,
The assistant sighed.
you are aware that we send out a sales report at the end of every month.
I never received it.
Henry lied.
We've had glitches in the system all day today,
The assistant said.
so I would ask you to wait for the report.
Glitches? What kind of glitches?
Suddenly, Henry's ears perked up.
Just problems with the database, the website, that kind of thing. So please be a little patient.
Once the assistant had hung up, Henry hastily typed in his publisher's website address. Then he clicked on the Romance tab. He scrolled all the way down, his hand clenched around the computer mouse. Indeed, the pink and purple book was no longer there. In the cafe, Natalie handed Henry the flash drive.
Oh, that was quick.
Henry took the flash drive and put it in his pocket. This was all that remained of the book. The digital copy had disappeared from the databases and websites. The print versions must also have disappeared from the shelves. He would check tomorrow. The publisher would be devastated that their top-selling book had disappeared, if they even noticed. Henry still did not know how quickly the works disappeared from the collective memory.
And when will the audiobook be published?
The young woman asked, interrupting his thoughts.
What? Oh, it will... maybe...
Henry stuttered.
I'm going to ask the publisher, and I'll transfer the money to you this week,
he added.
Thanks. That was actually quite fun. A change from my usual work. Does the publisher need more audiobooks?
Not at the moment, no.
Megalomaniac fantasies surfaced in Henry's head. He imagined how he had all the publisher's books read away, one after the other, until only his book remained. Then it would finally get the attention it deserved. Natalie tapped nervously on the table.
So, are we reading again, or what?
What?
The woman raised an eyebrow.
You are slow today. I'm talking about the Proust.
Henry had to swallow. He had almost forgotten about that. After all, that's what they were here for. But he could not let her continue to decimate the recherche.
I, honestly don't have that much time today. Got a lot to do in the office. I just wanted to get the flash drive.
Oh, okay.
The young woman lowered her gaze.
Come to think of it, I'll be pretty busy for a while, but I do want to continue this.
Henry looked at her.
Just give me a few weeks, okay?
But by then we'll have finished Swan's Way. In the book club, I mean.
We can still read it, or we can just read something else.
Surely some well-known author must have written some obscure short stories whose loss would not be so bad for the world. Natalie looked at him accusingly, as if he had stolen her purse. Was it possible that she had somehow become attached to their shared Wednesday evenings? Henry forced himself to ignore it, closed his bag, and stood up.
Okay, see you.
He circled the table and headed for the exit.
Wait!
The woman screamed so loudly that Henry winced. Heads turned in the cafe. Had she found out what he had done? Henry turned around.
What?
He took a few steps back. The woman was holding onto the back of the chair in a strange way.
We should exchange numbers or email addresses. Otherwise, we won't know when we'll meet next time.
Right.
She dug out a pen and wrote something down on the napkin, then passed it to him. Before she could say anything else, he hurried out of the cafe. For the next few weeks, Henry kept in touch with Natalie only via email. As it turned out, making words disappear was highly addictive. He could not stop after he had given her the one book. He sent her another one from a different trilogy, penned by one of the self-publishers in his writing group, Romantasy, which he loathed, as an e-book, and asked her to record that as well. It would cost him quite a bit, but it was worth it. Still cheaper than a lawsuit, if he had not represented himself after all. And less nerve-wracking, too, somehow soothing, actually. Plus, he helped the young woman to make more money. He wondered what the author would do if one book of their trilogy was suddenly missing. Would she forget that she had ever written the book too? Would she go crazy? Would she come up with something new? He hoped not. But maybe he would find out at the writing group's next meeting. At the next meeting, Henry agreed to Jeremy's suggestion that he come along for a drink. He knew Jeremy only wanted him there so he could make fun of him, but he didn't mind this time. After all, Henry had something to laugh about himself. Even as he stepped out into the large, wide corridors of Edinburgh University, Jeremy tapped him on the shoulder.
Become a bestseller yet?
He had one of those semi-English, semi-Scottish accents, and a leather jacket that was lined on the inside to hide the fact that he was actually cold.
Nah, not yet.
Henry sighed, then pulled at his tie. He was overdressed for the pub.
Then you're no better than me,
Jeremy said with a smirk.
It's not about becoming a bestseller, is it?
For me, it's about trying to reach as many people as possible. Whether they like my book or me personally, I don't care. I'm doing that whole TikTok thing.
Henry could have sworn Jeremy was tossing his hair back, but in the dark, misty light, he couldn't see it clearly.
I bet you're the type of person who writes a review of a book they haven't even read.
Jeremy was silent for a moment. He probably hadn't expected the attack. Then he laughed.
I bet you're the type of person who lies about writing a book.
Henry was about to say something in reply when they arrived at the door of the pub opposite the university cafe. He entered a narrow hallway. The place was packed. People were chatting and laughing. One or two were on Tinder. At one point, Henry had also gone on Tinder and had even had a few matches. But at least 3 of them looked as if they had just been dropped in from outer space.
You want a Guinness or something?
Jeremy shouted from behind.
Yeah, I guess.
He was surprised that Jeremy wanted to buy him a drink. He pushed further into the room, behind the others, and sat down opposite the 3 self-publishers. So far, he had not exchanged a word with them. Furtively, he eyed the self-publisher whose book Natalie had just read away. She was talking to the other 2 women. Unfortunately, it was noisy in the pub, so Henry only heard snippets of conversation.
Feel like all my energy has been sapped these days. As if I've had a new idea recently, but it somehow escaped me.
Henry pricked up his ears.
Here you go, dude.
Jeremy appeared and shoved a glass of beer on the table. He took a seat to Henry's left and nudged him.
Want to see some of these TikTok videos I made?
Jeremy beamed and pulled out his phone. He tapped the screen, and suddenly there were 5 videos featuring Jeremy, each time with a different coloured background with words like write or create. Henry tried to block him out and focus on the conversation between the self-publishers.
Not even sure what is happening with me. Go to the doctor. Just don't know where my writing is going right now.
A gap in the conversation opened up. Henry's heart began to beat faster. He tried to put on a sympathetic expression.
Hey, Adele, I heard that you just published the final book of that trilogy. How's it going with that?
The woman looked like she had been punched in the face.
No, What makes you think that? No, I only have the first 2 books so far. I was just saying that
She took a deep breath.
that I currently have no inspiration.
Oh, that's too bad. I would have definitely bought the 3rd volume.
Damn. He had to make sure that he didn't overdo it. The woman looked at him in surprise.
I didn't know that you were reading any of my books.
Well,
Fortunately, Jeremy nudged him right at that moment. Henry gave the woman an apologetic look and turned to Jeremy, who was showing him a video of himself attempting some sort of stunt on a chair. As Henry walked home through the dark streets of Edinburgh a little later, he could hardly believe his luck. Not only did the author's books actually disappear completely, they didn't even seem to remember them. And they lost their inspiration. Like a virus, it seemed to eat into their brains. Henry looked up into the sky. He saw only one star flickering above the towers of the university. It was mixing with the pale moonlight to create a white haze across the sky, like an old painter's canvas. Natalie was sitting at her desk in the call centre during lunch break. It was raining outside, a steady rain that had been going on for days.
I'm going to have to go home early.
Natalie told the agent sitting next to her.
Again? Aren't you bored of sleeping yet?
Kayla laughed and turned away from her cubicle. Natalie remained silent. She had not yet told her co-workers about her lucrative side job.
But seriously, are you okay? You've been looking kinda tired lately. Is something wrong?
Kayla asked her again, her voice suddenly serious. Natalie shrugged.
It's nothing.
It was true. She had been feeling more listless lately. Maybe it was related to her double load. Maybe having 2 jobs wasn't good for her. But it did bring in money. For the first time in a while, Natalie dared to buy butter again. The supermarket no longer felt like a temple where everything was too expensive. Today, she had the latest recording with her. She wanted to check the last chapter before giving it to Henry. She unpacked her salad, plugged the flash drive into the PC, and clicked on the audio file. She speared a few lettuce leaves with her fork. When she put the headphones in her ears, the lettuce almost fell out of her mouth. What she heard was not her own voice. It was a chant unlike any other she'd ever heard. It had no clear rhythm or rhyme. Its pitch ebbed and flowed like the sea, with notes that crested and swelled into the air, carrying a feeling of distant places. Natalie's hair stood up on end. What was that? Had she accidentally copied a song file into the folder? It sounded like something her mother could sing. She tried avant-garde pieces sometimes, but the file was clearly labelled audiobook_chapter_25. Had Natalie been singing herself? No, she couldn't remember that. Besides, she didn't have such a beautiful voice. She clicked on another file, then another. Each time, this strange singing filled her ears. The files were corrupted, that had to be it. Damn! Now she would have to re-record everything, and she had just thrown the book in the trash this morning. She would get a new one from the big bookstore right after work. She didn't want to ask Henry. He had too much to do, for sure, and she didn't want to admit any mistakes, not in front of him. Not in front of Henry. It felt strange to go to the bookshop without the goal of meeting Henry. Whenever Natalie read Proust on her own at home, she somehow lacked focus. She would leave the novel somewhere and then forget about it. Henry was the one who held the book together. When she read for him, the sentences made sense. A woman wearing a blue V-neck sweater was standing behind the counter of the bookstore.
Excuse me, I'm looking for A Court of Thorn-Bound Hearts by Saoirse J. McCrae. It's for my sister.
Natalie quickly added, blushing. The woman should not think that she read such trash.
Let me check.
The woman typed something into the computer, then looked up.
A Court of Thorn-Bound Hearts, you said? I can't find anything here. Are you sure that's the right title?
Yes, 100%. It's supposed to be the third part of
Natalie was thinking.
the Temptation trilogy.
The Temptation Trilogy.
The woman stretched the words as she was typing.
The system tells me that there are only 2 parts so far. Your sister must have given you the wrong info. It's probably already announced on the publisher's site.
But it must be there.
The woman shrugged apologetically.
Sorry, we don't have it. I can offer you the first 2 volumes of the series.
No, thank you.
Natalie turned away. Damn! Did she really have to ask Henry for a new copy now? On the bus, Natalie called up the publisher's website on her cell phone. She scrolled and scrolled, but there was no trace of the book. Had Henry given her an advance copy? It was perhaps best for her to come clean right away. She opened her mailbox and started typing. As he read Natalie's email, Henry knew that he had to be careful now. He switched to another tab and scrolled through the publisher's website. The book really was gone. Natalie didn't know that she had already completed her job. He would tell her that the publisher had now cancelled the project, but would still pay her. In the creative field, projects were cancelled all the time. That was nothing unusual. And he would give her a new project right away, so she would stop thinking about it. But he would have to think of something for the future. He had to somehow prevent Natalie from just walking into bookstores and asking for books. Otherwise, she would eventually figure out what was really going on.